like, you got to think, when you're taking a trip, you're investing 8 hours just led down in your bed in the dark. So you're not doing anything actually productive per se. So they're not literally a magic pill. They won't fix your life. Like, you might realise something.
That's what I was getting at, to be fair. Is like, yeah, they can't do it for you. They can sort of show you what you need to do, but you still have to do it yourself.
Yeah. That's just it, yeah.
Because I got into a period where I was sort of, every time I had a problem in my life, I'd maybe take a trip and be like, I'll find out the solution by tripping, which I think was not a good mind state to be in. But yeah.
Yeah, I do definitely know what you mean. It's like you actually go into the trip with a certain problem, like...
Yeah.
And you're like hoping... But like, to be honest, a lot of the time it does actually work, right? It does actually resolve.
Yeah,
like...
it tends to, yeah. And that's, yeah. And that's why I can see that they could become not necessarily addictive, but do you know what I mean?
You become reliant on them.
Yeah.
But is that necessarily like a problem? So the way that these days I'm quite like positive and open and moving forward, but especially when I was in my like somewhat recent depression spout, like 3 weeks would pass and I'd have like some psychological like knot that I'm like looking to unravel, that's like built up, and I'm like, if only I had a trip, it would probably answer it. But it often does.
Exactly.
So
it often does. Yeah, that's the thing.
So is that a bad thing, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I like often I'll answer it in the way that you don't expect as well. I found that. I don't know if you've found that yourself. But I'll have an intention, and the trip will. I'll sort of like there was this one trip I was trying to get over this problem that I was having, and the trip kind of was nothing to do with that, or at least I thought it wasn't until the end of the trip, where I realised I was trying to control the trip the whole time to make it like be relevant to this problem. But then the solution was stop trying to control things, and that solved the problem. So it kind of takes you around the long way, if you get me.
Yeah, like come like full circle. That's
Yeah.
But this is why like I don't even set an intention. We were speaking when we met, almost just like like one of the main things you hear is just set an intention, and
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
it's good to set an intention. Like, you want to know why you're doing it. These days I just say take mushrooms, because they normally just show me what I'm looking for. But you often go in with an intention, and by the time you've dosed and it's starting to come on, you're like, what was I on about? That's just retarded. Like, you weren't even thinking properly about it. And then when it's coming on, you're like, it's not what you anticipated, sort of shit.
Yeah. And as well, like, it won't always solve the problem or even offering a solution. It might just be accept the problem. The problem's okay to be there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it often like dissolves any need to progress. But here is a very important. So my friend Joshua, who I will get on the podcast hopefully eventually, he's very radically spiritual. So if I do get him on, I'll link him at the top of the description as well. So he went into a trip. He was telling me, I was with him before he took the dose, and what he wanted to trip for, this mushroom trip, I think it was like a 3-5, was to quit smoking cigarettes once and for all. And I used to come in with these like narratives like, oh, I'm gonna trip to like finally sort my shit out. But anyway, a lot of people, who was it that I think it was Leo Gura Actualized, who says like it is possible to be deluded still on the trip, and that's certainly the case. So my friend came out of the trip, and instead of resolving like finally he quit smoking, he actually come out of the trip with reasons why smoking's actually okay, and smoking's a part of the matrix, and as long as he exercises then he can still smoke. So it's like,
right, okay,
he didn't get what he wanted. He just come out with like excuses and rationalizations of why he can actually smoke.
Yeah, that's why I think what you said before is important, in that you don't just believe it and take it as you don't. That's what I was trying to say by like treating what the mushrooms sort of not tell you, but do you know what I'm saying? Just don't take it as fact. Don't like rely on a trip to. Not everything that you experience on a trip is necessarily the truth.
But it certainly it almost always seems that it is like no doubt you are like fully confronting truth a lot of the time.
Yeah,
and you reflect on
like
it.
that, 100%. And I think when you're in it, 100%. But when you can reflect on it, sometimes there's a few things that you might think, okay, that was a bit, that was just a bit of delusion.
Yeah. See, what can I?
Because when I had on the last trip that I had last Saturday, like I was thinking about smoking because I've been vaping for like quite a while, and I came out with the conclusion that it was self-hateful to smoke.
Yeah.
To damage, to put that into your body, which is clearly going to damage it, is the complete opposite of self-love. So it's essentially self-hateful.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah.
Well, so in terms of like they definitely, it's like I'm struggling to actually think of any particular examples. So one thing, I got a few things to say. So when I became depressed like 2-3 months ago for quite a long time, a few months, basically I stopped taking mushrooms, and this is when I became depressed. And what I used to say is like, oh, I stopped taking mushrooms and I kind of come down from my God complex, and I was like, yeah. I realised I'm not God. Like, look at me on YouTube. I thought I was God. And then what made me laugh is now that I'm not depressed is now I think that me going, oh, I thought I was God. How stupid. I'm like, well, I am God. Not literally in an ego way, but it's kind of how Leo says it. But it's like I come down and started thinking. So I stopped having the mushrooms, therefore stopped having like what I would perceive now, because I think mushrooms seem to inevitably raise my awareness. So I stopped taking them. I started thinking again, following this story in my mind, and go, oh, I'm not God. I really thought I was smarter than I was. Like, and insecurity started to surface. I started to remove videos. I started watching my videos going, what am I going on about? But it's like, you're thinking a lot. And when the thought, like, you confront a radical truth in the experience. And when the thoughts resume in sobriety, you start deconstructing it. Like, what am I on about? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But when you're actually in it, you don't even need to think. It's just like pure, in your body. You're like, but I don't know. Have you ever had like like what you would deem an awakening, or?
I'd say so. Yeah, I've had a couple of sober experiences that were quite close to what you would experience on like maybe an ego death or something like that. Obviously, without all the visuals and that, but just sort of presence, I guess. But there's definitely a difference between that actual experience and then how you think about it afterwards, which I think is what you're saying. Yeah,
it's like when the thoughts resume, you start like picking it apart, and you come back with your like culture and your normal program, and then you're like, what am I on about? This ties into what you're saying about, is it their potential for delusion? The first video on my channel, when it's called Wage Slave Awakening. To this day, I think is poor in terms of I picked up the camera on a whim after realising on a trip, and it showed me that I'm trapped in wage slavery. And I wasn't anticipating this. I just took a trip. I thought, maybe I shouldn't have tripped. I led down. 3 hours into it, I was literally getting shown fucking visions of, like, my never-ending, like, routine trapped in some job that I'm getting paid, like, £7 an hour. And then I got very angry with my situation, picked up my camera and ranted for, like, 50 minutes. I watched that entire video back while tripping, and I was like, yes, well done. I was like, this is the perfect video, this is the best. I turned my computer on, I felt like I was on a mission. I was like, right, I'm uploading it, and it literally was like I was fucking on a mission to take over the world. And then so I'm watching it, I think it's the bollocks. I wake up the next day, I watch it again, and I'm like, this video is fucking garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being on. It was like that 4 gram trip that I was on about that kind of messed me up for like a couple months. When I was like in that trip, I was on a mountain and I was just like, I'm gonna walk down into the nearest town and I'm just gonna start waking people up. And yeah, and then I woke up the next morning and was like, what was I on about?
Yeah,
But,
it's
yeah.
That's what Terence says. Is he come down off his first LSD trip when he was like 19, and he was convinced that he would turn his parents on. Like,
Yeah.
I found this, and then that's what that's what we were saying at the beginning. Is you have to go through this stage of like, right. The truth is, I believe, especially mushrooms or just psychedelics in general. I often call mushrooms the holy grail. I truly think that they are some next fucking level medicine to, and in my experience, especially like as I've had more and more trips and I've learned and I have a deep intuition on the mushrooms now, is I really think that they are radical tools of self-discovery, self-realization, transformation,
Yeah.
and insights about yourself, nature of reality, family, all sorts. It's a madness, and I think that it's literally an unlimited realm, especially when you look at the cultures that like the shamans that is drinking it like every morning for breakfast, and they're literally so when you discover the holy grail as a human, what else are you to do but to try bring it back to the tribe and go, look what I found, and then they all go, shut the fuck up, I'm not coming to your religion. And you're like, it's not a religion, is it? And then everyone's like, yeah, you took drugs and you're crazy, obviously. It's like so you can't blame yourself.
Yeah. So with, do you think there's potential, we were talking about Andrew Tate and what he's saying about people searching for meaning in drugs.
Yeah.
Do you think there is potential for that at all? You can get lost in sort of trying to trip and get meaning in that trip, but then you forget about sober life. So you just, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean. It's like
Mhm.
because the psychedelic experience, I'm sure you're aware, it sits you on your arse and shows you the whole thing, and it often, like, your whole life, and it often feels like there's nowhere else to be, in the sense of, like, when you're fully immersed in it. I don't know what experience you've had exactly, but I'm like, this is all encompassing, and I literally see my whole life from like a meta perspective.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to, because when you're in that state, it's hard to argue with it somewhat. But so you know Jacob, right, in the Discord?
Yeah. I watched that interview you did with him.
Yeah, so those who don't know, I got 2 interviews. The first one's the better one. The second one, he was tripping, and it was hard to really get him to speak. But he basically, this is an important distinction. So are you using psychedelics? This is how Leo Gura would approach this, is that I think psychedelics are best used when you're already mastering, like, it depends if you're using it for like therapy and you're literally down on your knees and like you need them because you're depressed or whatever the fuck, like. But then when it comes to self-actualization, it's like you don't take them and just mentally masturbate. So you don't take them and then just zoom away in some hyperdimension and then take them again and then listen to a lecture and then take them again. This is basically what Jacob does.
That's what I was trying to get at just then. Yeah.
So Jacob literally sits at home, and I love Jacob, sure, but like, and he can be the master of his own life. He hasn't got to do anything. But you basically take them, you realize stuff. But if you're not actually integrating the realization, and then
that's it. It's the integration part that I feel is massively important. Otherwise, you are just getting high.
Literally, if you're not like why are you doing it? Like, it's like if you're really depressed and that, and you do it and then you realize self-love and everything's okay, or you awaken and you dissolve your problems, that's very important to have them spiritual times from now and then. But like, and I guess I mean, I don't know. And then this is what Actualize says, is like the people who say there's nothing to do, like the spiritual people. He says, "Go fuck yourself." Yeah. That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. It's like, and Terence says, like, you go into that realm to bring back ideas, and I think ultimately, yeah, and the people around you, like your family, if you can use psychedelics for personal development and build a better, profound life and get better insights, then people will be somewhat satisfied. But if you just take them, just to take them, and then realise like, what are you, like, other than the present moment, you're not progressing.
Yeah, 100%. Because when I first started taking mushrooms, my mum knew about it and she weren't happy at all, because she thought I was just sort of getting high, like you were just saying. But then when she could see that it was actually helping me, and that I went from like a really depressed state to like a lot happier and actually starting to do things with my life, she was like, oh, okay. She was a bit more sort of open-minded to it.
Yeah, that's it, really. And I think someone like Andrew, like, he's closed-minded to it. But I think someone like Andrew, like, oh yeah, he's the way he says it is like, oh, you want to fucking.
When I started drinking, I was changing.
Like, so I can't remember exactly what he said, but he just said, like, he was talking about ayahuasca and psychedelics, and he just said, "Shut the fuck up, come meet me in the cage, and I'll beat the shit out of you."
I know the exact clip that you're on about. I watched it earlier.
So it's like, yeah, but then so yes, you don't need psychedelics to build a good life or whatever, Andrew.
Yeah.
And everyone knows he's like very egoic, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I think that someone like Andrew could use psychedelics on top of his already actualized life and become even next levels of.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I was reading, I can't remember who was saying this, but apparently a lot of the top blokes in the, like Silicon Valley, all the tech guys.
Yeah,
apparently a lot of them either microdose or use psychedelics on like a regular basis. And I think, like you were just saying, it can help you build on top of what you already have. Because I just don't think that you can get the realizations that you do on those substances whilst just in a sober mind state. I don't think that's possible. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. But.
Well, Tristan was like, because Sneeko and Tristan were talking about him, and I actually put a video of that up on my channel, and I reflected on what they both were saying about it as well. And then Tristan says, yeah, you can also get it from a long, hard look in the mirror. I don't know. Yeah, edit.
Yeah. It's like, there probably is ways, like you see these, like these gurus and whatever. But it's like, that can take like, 30, 40 years of constant meditation, whereas you can take mushrooms and within 6 hours experience that level of consciousness. So I think that can be pretty beneficial, to be honest.
Yeah, I think like to really like, because it's hard to access your subconscious. I'm sure you're aware, and what happened to our friend who had a somewhat challenging trip. Well, it was very challenging. It was like, for those who are interested, he had like the video of Leo Guru where he become God on the floor, like, and he's like breathing for like an hour and a half. That's what happened to our friend, basically. And I've had that as well, which I'll have a live trip report coming out soon. It happened like over a year ago, and I've just been meaning to get it out, but it's so radical and incoherent. You literally just start crying and breathing on the floor, and it's like full-blown non-dual awakening shit. But
that's what happened to me on that trip that I've just been talking about, up on that mountain.
Oh yeah,
I had that exact same experience then. I was just bawling my eyes out on the floor, and I thought I'd gone insane and that I was never coming back, but I did.
Yeah, you always. It's very common for you to think that you'll never be able to unsee what you've seen.
Yeah.
And I've had that. I reckon it's the same. Like, even my terror trip was the same insight, but like I didn't accept it. But then as I built like a a framework from watching Actualize and all the now I can understand it a lot better. So when I go in there, like, I'm much more ready for mind blowing, because I feel like those who have never taken a psychedelic, and I said this on my video just now on psychedelic advice, is if you've never been to a radical realm, prepare to have your paradigm shattered, because it's not, you don't form a belief system, but you get into a space that is so radically unfamiliar that it's basically impossible as far as you're concerned, and then you can either interpret this as fucking like scary as fuck, and it is scary, but you have to like be mindful and just get through it. But like sometimes you get in there and you're like, oh my god, I had literally, those who have not explored psychedelics, you have no idea, and neither do those who have explored psychedelics. They're literally infinite.
100%. I think especially with psychedelics, is something that to really talk about it and have a genuine opinion about it, you need to experience it at least once, because it's just so out of the normal life that you can't really form a solid opinion about it if you've never done it, which is what Andrew Tate has done.
You're exactly right on that one. Yeah, good point.
Because it's so out of normal reality that you can't just have an opinion that it's just an hallucination, because it's definitely not when you're in it.
I've got these I don't know if you're somewhat familiar with them mad psychedelic visuals I have in the background all the time, and like
they're cool.
I've got them in the background now, which just shows a good fucking like people wondering what we're on about. Well, here you go. You think it's like you want to form an opinion about this, and this is literally what you confront. It's like you cannot. There was a quote by what's his name? It's not Marcus Aurelius. I can't actually remember. But he says basically the opinion of 10,000 men who know nothing about the subject is just worth nothing.
Yeah, I know the quote you mean. I don't know who it's by, but yeah, I know. I think it's very hard not to, in the moment when you're in that headspace, it's very hard not to take it as something like, I don't know, sacred or godly in a sense, because it's just so profound.
Yeah, and it's very like you say, it's very outside of... I'll tell you what one of the main things is. This is actually a good point that I haven't stated on my channel yet. I put on my Snapchat recently. The reason why... You know how people claim how meditation and breath work and psychedelics get you to the same realm?
Yeah.
What I've concluded is when you're just existing in your life, you're always making dinner, going to work, getting fuel, cleaning up, making a video. You know what I mean? You're always doing like shit. But then when you take a psychedelic or meditate, you basically take a step back. Do you agree? And you kind of see it from like a bigger picture, like out from the outside.
I had one trip where I kind of, I don't know if it was like a realization, but it's like a time to sort of remember the bigger picture, like you say.
It's like you take a step back, and that's why I said earlier it's all encompassing, because you see it all.
Yeah.
You're very clear on where you are in your life a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like you take a step out of your mind, and you can just sort of see it in front of you.
Well, I think
without the attachment to it that you normally would have.
That's right, but then the reason why there's an attachment is because you're always literally involved in some like 3-dimensional process on Earth. Like you know, you're always, like I say, you're always driving somewhere, you're always watching a video, you're always engaged with this spatial realm. But then when you take a psychedelic, you're not actually doing anything. You're literally like, well, to be fair, I think the distinction is if you heavily integrate like into your mind, into the mind realm, whether it's meditation or psychedelics or anything, that is where you finally take a step outside of the daily task. And that's,
and I think that's where the value really is in like using psychedelics, to be honest. is integrating that back into everyday life, which is what we were just saying, to be fair.
Ooh, I actually just thought of a very good thing. So yeah, I did hear you, but
Yeah.
so it's relevant to what we were saying. So Quadeca, who's just an artist, basically, he has a he has an album. So he uses about Sisyphus. I said about how you always. I told you on the trip. I don't know if you guys remember exactly, but it's like the guy who rolls the boulder up the mountain for all eternity.
Yeah.
And that's the predicament of humans, is you're always progressing into the future for no real reason.
Yeah.
What is the strongest force on the planet? You might be thinking, it's actually sound.
So in the album From Me to You, there's a voice clip that says, in life, it's like mountains. You're climbing mountains, but when you're actually climbing a mountain in real life, I don't know if you're aware. Have you climbed a mountain because you live right next to it?
I climb lots of mountains. They're all around me.
Is it the case, and this is a perfect analogy, hopefully. So when you're climbing the mountain, you can only really see what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get a very big overall picture of where you are.
Yeah, 100%. Unless you stop. But yeah, which is what we're saying, isn't it?
But I mean, but when you're actually like face up to the mountain, like
walking,
if you're literally but I mean, it depends if you're like walking or if you're literally climbing like some madness. Like imagine there are bare different level ridges going up.
Yeah.
Like,
well, to be fair, even when you're walking up like a steep hill, it's very hard to focus on anything else other than like exactly what you're doing.
Do you remember the Simpsons movie? I think it was this. Have you watched that movie?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a part where I think they have to climb a mountain. I don't know, but he gets to what he thinks is the top because he can only see in front of him because it's so steep.
Yeah.
And he gets to the top, and then there's the actual mountain like next to it, and he's like, oh fuck. The analogy that I'm saying is that it's when you're literally face up with like a vertical mountain, obviously you can't see the whole fucking thing. You can only see the ledges near.
Yeah, they call it a false summit, is when it looks like the top, but you get there and then it's not the top, and then that happens like 4 more times until you actually get to the top.
So are we not with this is actually sick, I hope. So I mean, so when you're driving or when you're making a bowl of cereal or whatever the fuck, is that not somewhat a false summit? Like, you're engaged with it, but then when you take a psychedelic, because you zoom out, therefore you see the whole mountain, you're not engaged so heavily with the false summit of driving from A to B, and then you're getting pissed off because there's traffic, therefore you're just like engaged with this small picture perspective. But when you take a psychedelic, because it zooms out, you see the whole fucking landscape.
Yeah, that is a good analogy. I see. Yeah.
I reckon that's a good way to say it.
No, that is. Yeah, I rate that.